Hi Anne-Marie, Trudy here. Thanks for putting in your second video, and again it's fantastically clear, so that's going to help me give you really good feedback. I've had a quick look through the video, well, a few times I've looked through it because it's helpful to see the whole thing before I start to think about your feedback, and I'm really impressed with how much cleaner and clearer you are with your aiding. First of all, of course, you told me that you have decided to use your feet moving or stopping as your signal for her, so that makes it really nice and clear. And I can see some ways that I can really help you improve on what you've got already, and then I'm going to set you a final little task for another couple of minutes at the end of this video. So without too much more, let's have a look at your video. Okay, there we had a nice stop, and I shall keep dropping back and having a look again, just so that I can tell you word by word, step by step. So that was lovely. You stopped and she stopped. I thought that was fantastic. I don't know how many you'd practiced first, but that was really nice. And what I noticed was her ears were really on you and she was very aware of you. And now we're moving into this go position for moving off. Let me just do you a little bit of a note on that. And look, I love this. This hand is giving towards the mouth to go rather than pulling back. I'll find some examples later where you have a little feel on the rein if she doesn't go, but eventually I'd like her to go from you taking almost an in-breath that says I'm going, you know, really, rather than you having to get too far ahead. But for now, I'm really, really pleased with how well you're doing with all that. So let's continue the video. Yeah, so there was a little feel on the rope, but you know, she's going to learn from that. But that does mean obviously that you have that's lovely, another really super hold. And even for the Baroque, I wouldn't be unhappy with you being in this position. Somewhere between the nose and the shoulder is ideal at the beginning. Later, when you get to the more collected work, being at the shoulder is beneficial. But you know, for now, this is really nice. And again, look at those ears. She's looking at you. She's checking what you're doing. And what I really like is she's standing in her own balance. You know, she's not relying on you. So this is going to help her back. It's going to develop her own balance and build strong muscles because of it. So it's really pleasing to see, and couldn't be happier with that. So off we go again. Now, what I think I'm going to say, that was actually a very nice one. You walked forwards, and by the time you just got past her nose, she was off. But what I think I want you to think about when you're practicing and you're getting ready for moving forwards is, you know, really lift up as if you have a little bit of energy. It's not, you know, I don't want you jumping or anything. Just literally lift up your energy as if you are really full of enthusiasm yourself. And really go for it in that first step. So it feels like, yeah, she knows that there's some intent there from you. But that was a really nice one. And I absolutely love this position of hers. I obviously would like you to be at her shoulder or closer to her shoulder than that. But her own balance there looks super. So let's go for the next one. So she plays a little bit with the ropes, and I've noticed a couple of times she does this. And I think there's a couple of ways around this. When you're practicing, if she does that with the rope, bring her forwards to halt. Get your position back at her shoulder and try and, you know, become that partnership again. Because I think what happens with Ninka is that when she gets a bit sort of on the end of the rope, she loses her confidence a little bit. People sometimes think that pushy, strong horses are confident, but in actual fact, from behavioural perspective, it's the absolute opposite. Horses often get bargy and pushy because they actually lack confidence to know what they're doing and if they're doing the right thing. So if in practice you see her mouthing the rope, just stop, give her a moment, rebalance, and then start again. And the aim of this whole module, I hope, is that she gets that balance on her own, and the final little bit that I'm going to get you to video last, I hope will be the last little bit within that that will help you on your way. So here we go again. And she's a little bit distracted, so I'm going to guess that also part of that mouthing of the rope going down there was she's coming to the gate. She probably quite likes the gate because it's where she comes in and out. So this is very nice. We've passed the gate. We know we're carrying on. And that is super. And again, in the halt, Anne-Marie, think about stopping before you do. So have that in-breath gently, and then just have this big out-breath as you stop. And she'll start to stop on your out-breath. And so then she won't get so far ahead of you. But I'm really liking how responsive she is and how gentle she is. Yeah, good. That was really nice. So you ignored her having a little nibble around the rope in your hand. You just kept your hand there and ignored it. You didn't have a tap at it or anything to get her away. And she stopped doing it because it wasn't getting anything. And so, you're building up this pattern with her that she thinks, oh, right, I'll just get on with it. Very, very nice. And there, I really like the way you use the fence. Now, this little bit here, she's distracted. So let's look at the classic signs of her being distracted. Let me get my freehand pen on. So first of all, we've got the ears, and they are focused forwards. If you look at when she halts and she's listening to you, her ears are either a little bit back or they're flicking one forward, a bit forward, back, but they're certainly never forwards. And then if we look at where her eyes are, her focus is off out here instead of being in on here on you. And there's probably more that I could pick on, but you see then the neck became quite stiff and straight and she's not looking at you. So how do we get around this? What do we do when she zones out? It's one of the words I use for it, zoning out. What do we do? Well, instead of walking on and then expect her to have seen you, she's compromised, there's something down there that she wants to look at. You could get her attention back on you before you even add the aid to walk on, i.e. you walking on. So I would do in this situation is I would just draw that rope very gently towards me. I might call her name and I would just gently bring her towards me. And in doing that, you will very often soften this neck here. So instead of that being stuck, it's going to become all mobile again. In respect of her looking over there, because you've drawn the nose towards you, the eyes are going to come to you too. And then finally, when she realizes that there's something that she needs to be involved with you in, then those ears are going to flick either backwards, forwards, but they're certainly not going to be fixed in the distance. So have a little feel on the rope and say, I'm here. I have a little cue word for my horses which says, I ask something and you might have been too distracted to know, and it's to say, come back to me, and that's a whistle. So I whistle to my horse if I've already given a cue, which you have, you've walked on and she ignored you, and I can see that they're compromised, they're looking at something else and they're not with me. Rather than sort of pulling or pushing, it just gives you that option to try and get the softness. You were really good there, you waited and you had a little pull and a little feel, and she really, really didn't want to come with you. So what ended up happening is that she was still looking as you turned. So split those behaviours into two. Soften the neck, draw her to you, and then walk on, so that they become different things. So you've done really well in isolating an aid, a cue that you want to use for walk on, being your feet moving. But now you have to think of all the other things that you do with her, and those having very different cues to the feet going forwards. Otherwise you will get confused. Your body language is super soft as well. That's really nice. I think you could come on an even longer rein there. Oh, bless it. These flies have taken off in this sunshine. You went there, drew the rein forward, we're not perfect. It takes us time to get used to new ways. So again there you could have used, there's obviously something distracting. I don't know whether the yard's down that way or whether there's horses in the field down that way, but she's quite interested in that area. The other thing to think about, Anne-Marie, is to pick your moment. Pick your place. Train where the situation sets you up for success. So if you've got one side of the school that she always noses out of, and let's face it, I'm sure we've all got horses that have that in a certain place, that they're very attracted to something going on the other side of the fence, then don't train on that side. Just once she gets moving, go with her and train her on the other side. Again, this is nice rope. It could be longer. You know, you could have, not for the Baroque. Let me just stress, Baroque is about working into a contact. But at the moment, what I wanted to unpick with you girls was that the fact that she just walked all through your aids, she didn't listen to you one bit. So this is all really basic groundwork to get you and Ninka really like a partnership, that she's with you. And to do that, we've got you a lot cleaner in your aiding, and we've got her hopefully listening to those aids. So when I say a nice big loop in the rope, that's more like Kate's practical horsemanship style. She would like what they call in natural horsemanship the smile in the rope. So that's a smile between your hand and the head collar. But, you know, we're working gradually back up towards the, excuse me, towards the Baroque. So gradually we'll start to bring more connection in. But now, for now, when she's doing what you want, the way to let her know she's got it right is by doing nothing, and having that nice loose rope for now would be great. Nice. And you see the difference in her ears before she stopped then? She was very aware that you were doing something and she had her ears on you. I think this is where we change rein. Okay, so again, she gets a little bit stuck there. So what I would have done, if I'd known when I changed rein that she was a bit sticky and that she'd got stuck, as I walked across her, I would have probably called her name, or, you know, given some cue. The walk-on cue is your feet, so you're already doing that. But just something to say, hey, listen to me, I'm doing something, could you be with me? And if you have to have a little feel on the rope to soften the neck, you could. But, you know, I think that's my thing. You've softened beautifully. It's lovely to see you in your own balance as well as her being in hers. But I'd like you now to be a little bit more effective with your body language. Very nice. You know, towards the end, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Fantastic. So here, you felt that you had to draw her forwards with your hand a little bit. And this will be quite a hard habit to break, and I'm sure I would do it in the same situation, because having your hand on the rope, we're very tactile with our hands as humans, and you go for the rope. But what I'd like to see you doing is letting her walk ahead. If she nibbles the rope or she doesn't want to, then halt and start again. So you get that rebalance. This is very nice. Oh, bless her with those flies again. Lovely. Fantastic. Yeah, really nice. Again, you could have even longer rope for now. And don't forget, think about that breath. And there, you just hold your hand still by your side so that she doesn't feel the rope. You could take that hand right up here. Let's do some more. You could have pushed your hand right there, and then on the end of that, you can imagine how long the rope would have been, because if your hand's here, then you've got this much rope still there. So she's not compromised by, well, is it the feet stopping that's the cue, or is it hand on the rope that's the cue? Now, I'm going to say something at the end about your cue selection, and so we can have a look at another thought about that as well at the same time. Yeah, so just as you had your hand there, just passing through. And at the end here, when you walked through and she didn't listen, I'd give her more time, give her more rope and get more ahead of her for a second, get her going, and then step back into her side. So there again, you end up pulling the rope, and look, it conflicts her, so she starts chewing the rope. Have a nice loop in that rope. It's not the norm. We're used to controlling our horses. but you know, she's looking like she doesn't need that here. And I love that she stayed in her own balance there. Again, I think you could have a longer rope here and get a little ahead of her to get her going. And, you know, gradually I would expect to see less walk steps before she goes with you, because she works it all out. I mean, she did fantastically well, because if you think about all those flies, that's been really tough. Well done, really well done. So let's just have a quick recap. You could give more rope. In the stop and the start, you could give more rope so that she's even more in her own balance. That isn't forever. We'll come back eventually to having much more of a contact, but for now, I think you could give her that space, and that's going to help her balance even more. I really love how soft your body is and how there was such a clear communication in this video compared to the first. I mean, such a difference. And I think you picked a good cue. Moving forwards, she can understand it. But what I want you to think about in that is that when you ride her later, you're not going to be able to step ahead of her, because you'll be on board. So whilst you could have a helper on the ground to transfer that to the ridden aid, which is absolutely fine, and I know you have help, so that's absolutely fine. But, you know, to get the lightness in the ridden aids, you need to have really good aids in terms of the groundwork. So moving your feet is a great one, but just remember, when you get on board, you're going to be using the hand to slow her as well. So that's going to be a little bit of a different feel for her. So where do we go from here? Well, there's a couple of things I want to think about. One is the fact that you're doing this in a dually. Now, I absolutely want you to stay safe. So if you and your instructor say to me, you absolutely could not work her without the dually, then I'm absolutely cool with that. But just to say, I can't bear the things. You know, they tend to rely on a pressure that doesn't release very easily. Not in what you're doing here. What you're doing here is super duper. You're not pulling on the rope or anything. But yeah, that's just maybe for going forwards, and perhaps you've had problems in the past with her that have meant it was easier to have the dually on. So the next part of, or the final part of this module, because I think it was nice to do these shorter little videos for you, but I want us to start going backwards. So we've already chosen the cue, the aids for the in-hand stop and start. So I think it's going to make complete sense that you use your feet to move her backwards. But you know, think about that, because that's entirely up to you. But for instance, if you do use your feet, as you're in this position here, all you would need to do, let's get the pen back up, all you would need to do in this situation is turn your right shoulder around to meet her right shoulder. Obviously, that will put your left shoulder over. It'll turn the other way and it will turn around to be there. So you'll be facing towards her tail. And again, I want you to have a really light feel in the rope, this lovely, you know, hand here and that lovely loop in the rope, at least that much. And then I want you to just walk backwards and see what you have. Now, to begin with, I don't think this particularly will work in the middle of the arena, because she can move her quarters wherever she likes. But I think it would work really well if you could do it alongside the fence, or if you've got two poles that you could put down that are just slightly wider than her hoof prints need to be, and just practice stepping her back through either the poles or along the fence. And you'll see this comes up in the Baroque all the time. And I'm looking for a lightness in the rein back. I'm looking for the horse not leaning on the rider, and I'm looking for diagonal steps. So in your last 2.5, 3 minutes maximum sort of video, if we could have a few more stop starts, and not every stop should be a rein back, but that you step her back. So maybe down the long side, you would have 2 or 3 halts, and 2 of those could be stepping back and 1 would just be a halt and walk on. And the reason that you want to be careful with that is that she will start to think, oh, every time I stop, I just go backwards. So make sure that the cue is very obvious, that she doesn't start stepping back before you turn around and face her tail and take that breath and walk back with her. Horses are very good, as we've already spoken about cues, they're very good at picking up hints that you're going to do something. So it will become that almost just turning around will become the cue for the rein back. So be careful, be clear with what you're asking, and when you get a chance to practice it, get it on film and send it back to me for your final little bit of feedback. Well done, Anne-Marie. Really pleased with your results so far.